Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 13 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I am your host, Pasquale Veri. Unfortunately, Andy is no longer a part of the podcast, but I want to take this moment to say, Andy, if you're listening, I want to thank you for the time you put into the Kiss Army Nation podcast. You brought an abundance of knowledge, passion, and a sense of fun to the show. You are definitely a unique individual, and that's what makes you so special. I really enjoyed our time together, and I am looking forward to seeing what new Kiss adventures awaits you in the future. I have a feeling your Kiss Cruise reunion will be a huge, huge success. Thank you, Andy, and I hope to see you soon. So I also want to take this opportunity to announce Claudio Spira, who you may remember from the discussion panel in episode 3, will be our new co-host. He will join us in the next episode. So looking forward to working with you, my friend. So for today's profile, I want to introduce Meaghan Ketcheson. Did I get that right, Meaghan?
Just about.
It is Ketcheson, right?
Ketcheson, yep.
Ketcheson. Yep. I
I
know that people, for the longest time, I thought your name was Meaghan. Everybody was calling you Meaghan on the cruise.
It is Meaghan.
Not Meaghan, and Meaghan. So I just, Meaghan.
Yes, I know. There's 1,000 ways to pronounce it, and my parents decided to pick the most challenging one, and but that's fine. I'll answer to just about anything. So.
Right. No, for the longest time, even my American friends also always butcher my name. They call me Pasquale, Pasquale. You know, it's Pasquale.
Yes.
And my the short version is Pasq. Much easier to pronounce. I'm not even going to start with Pasqualino, my my full Italian name.
There you go.
So, you know, all our listeners know that we start every fan profile with an origin story. So, Meaghan, what's your origin story? How did you get into KISS?
Well, I guess it'll tell my age a little bit. And I'm not ashamed of it either. In 1975, I was about 7 years old, and my dad had one of the best stereo systems on our little cul-de-sac. And all the babysitters were thrilled to come and actually babysit because they could bring over their records. And so a babysitter actually came over and brought a copy of Dressed to Kill. And so put it on, and despite, the bad production and what everybody complains about with those first 3 albums, I fell absolutely in love with Come On and Love Me. And so I just got hooked into the band, and the babysitter would come with a live, and then on that great big stereo, I remember lying in the middle of the living room just listening to the drum solo over and over and over again. And this is me as a little kid. So that is how I got into KISS. But it wasn't really until 1977, at the ripe old age of 9, that I was able to actually get my first KISS album, and that was Love Gun, that I actually bought because I was born in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, which is a small town in the cold middle of Canada. And KISS happened to be playing at the Regina Agrodome, one of the first rock shows at the Regina Agrodome on August 2nd, 1977. And I desperately wanted to go to that show. But it sold out in like 5 minutes, and my parents were coming from like the old school, well, we'll mail in the money and we'll get the tickets. So of course they mailed in the money, and 2 weeks later they said, sorry, it's all sold out because people were standing in line. So my first record LP was Love Gun, purchased at the Regina Exhibition Grounds next to the Agrodome as a consolation prize because I couldn't actually get to see KISS at that concert. But I was really lucky because my mom taught at the University of Regina theater department, and a lot of her students were actually working the KISS show and at the local crew, and they knew how big of a KISS fan I was. So they got me the tour book, which I still have, which was actually from the Rock and Roll Over tour, because it was the Canadian tour. They hadn't printed up any of the books for the Love Gun tour yet, and got me a t-shirt, which I still have, that says Canadian tour, Love Gun Canadian tour.
Wow.
So, but I didn't actually get to see the band in person until 1985. despite trying to see them in London, England as well, because I had moved to England in 1983, like 4 days after they took off the makeup. And I saw that they had I saw a listing, my first ever Kerrang magazine that I read, that they were playing in London and whatever. And again, we mailed in the money to see them at Wembley Arena. The tickets never arrived. And by the time Showtime came along in October, and we realized we weren't getting the tickets, all the other shows had sold out. So it took until 1985, it wasn't for lack of trying, until I finally got to see Kiss for the first time.
Oh, I remember trying to get tickets for a Kiss show that I thought was playing in Montreal. So I told my father if we could go buy tickets. And I remember going to the Bay to get tickets, and he told me, Kiss isn't coming to town. And I was so devastated. Oh, no. So as a compensation, my father got me the Originals album.
Ooh,
as
nice.
a little, I'm sorry this happened,
Yeah.
But, and then I remember, I got into Kiss around 8 years old, and never having seen Kiss live at that point, never saw them on TV. I just saw pictures in magazines and on records, but I told people I saw them in concert. And then when they asked me to describe a show, I couldn't do it. So they caught me in a lie. But,
that's so funny.
I was lucky enough to see my first show in 1979, the Dynasty show in Montreal. As an 11-year-old, what an experience that was. No
kidding. So jealous on that one, I gotta say.
So your first show was in 85, you said?
Yeah, so that was March the 7th, 1985. That was the Animalized tour. They came to Regina. So that was like, what a day. I got a prop.
Nice. Oh, wow.
Oops, I got to get it on an angle so you can see. So, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So March 7th, 1985, I had, bought tickets for the show. My parents said, you can take the day off school. And I was friends with a number of disc jockeys at the time. And they said, oh, yeah, Kiss is going to be coming in for an interview. You can come and meet them then. Oh. And then the guy ghosted me, the disc jockey. So I decided I'm going to go to the airport. So I went to the airport in little old Regina, Saskatchewan. And at about 11 o'clock in the morning, because I knew they were coming in from Calgary, and that was the first flight into Regina from Calgary. So I stood there and I was like, it was just me, dumbfounded. Who comes off the plane but Eric Carr and this other really tall, skinny guy? And I'm like, who's that? Because again, this was not internet age. This was magazine time. And at that point, they hadn't released, I don't believe, the Animalized live uncensored video. So I'm kind of going, who's that? Who's the tall guy? I said, Gene, and he just said no. And because we'll get into this a little bit more later, but I was a big Paul fan. I'm going, where's Paul? Like, here I am standing, there's like Eric freaking Carr standing in front of me. And I'm going, where's Paul? So, so they left, and I waited and waited, and there was no sign of Paul or Gene. And I guess they stayed in Calgary. So, okay, imagine this today. So I go to the Air Canada desk, and I say, so I'm wondering if you can check the manifold to see if you can find either of these names on any flights coming in. And they did. And I said, oh, yes, this person, I think it was Gene Klein, will be coming in, and Stanley Eisen will be coming in on the 5 o'clock flight from Calgary. Can you imagine anyone doing that now?
There's no way.
No way. So I left because this was about noon, and my best friend at the time, Laura, she was like, you didn't get a picture? And it's like, oh, no, I was just so flummoxed. And so she said, I'm coming with you to the airport. So we went to the airport at just before 5, and I was wearing this bright yellow T-shirt with Paul's face on it. And I stood, they let me into the secure area again. Because I was the only person there. Like, really, there was myself and my friend Laura. That was it. They let us into the secure area to wait for the flight to come. And I don't remember, honestly, if anybody else was on the plane. I just remember seeing the boots that Gene wore in the Heavens on Fire video at the top of this escalator coming down and arriving. And I kind of freaked out a little bit. He came over and chatted, and I asked him to sign my arm. I don't know why, but I did, in ballpoint pen. That's all I had. I had a red ballpoint pen. And I was 16 at the time. And so we were yattering about something. And I said, oh, is Paul with you? And he says, yeah, he'll be just behind me. And I guess I just went completely pale. And he turned to my friend and said, is she going to faint? And all of a sudden, there comes Paul, you know, walking along. And I sort of yell out to him. And he says, okay, wait, what's your name? And I said, Meaghan. And he said, okay, Meaghan, wait right here. I just have to go and make a phone call, and then I'll be right with you.
Wow.
So he went and made a phone call. Again, this is like 1985. There was a pay phone, the whole bit. And then he came over and did that.
Incredible.
So we talked for about 5 minutes, and then my friend Laura took the picture and made her sort of, you know, she just stood there and she wanted for me to soak in the whole moment. And then they went away. We went to the show, and we went to the hotel after, the only hotel that'll let them stay, in Regina. And it was March, and it was freezing cold outside. And I know that I've heard Bruce tell this story. He keeps saying it was in Sweden. It was actually in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. It was really cold outside. There was maybe about 6 or 7 of us standing outside. The manager of the hotel wouldn't let us in to the lobby, would not. And Eric and Bruce came downstairs and insisted that they let us in. Said, no, we'll vouch for them, and you have to come in. Because it was cold. It was, you know, cold and blustery March on the Canadian prairies. And so they were there in the lobby with us for, God, it must have been close to an hour, signing stuff, yattering away. And so, like, he signed my shirt, and he signed my tour book, Eric and Bruce. And so we got to talking about whether, you know, about Bruce and his future with the band. Well, I wouldn't join the band if they were breaking up and all that kind of stuff. And then some guy tried to take off with my marker, with my Sharpie that they were using. And Eric actually yelled at the guy, said, hey, get back here. That's Meaghan's pen.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So everything, and he was just a doll. Everything that you hear about Eric Carr is absolutely true. He was a doll, sweetheart. He was so nice to me, this, you know, geeky teenager, and just so nice. Just it was a life-changing evening meeting those guys.
Oh, that's incredible. I think it's the first time I actually heard a friend talk about their experiences with Eric Carr.
Yeah.
What an experience.
And then in '88, I went on because nobody ever comes to Regina, so I had to actually I went on a tour, a bus tour, to come to Winnipeg to see them at the Winnipeg Arena, and that was the first time I'd ever actually been in Winnipeg. So we had terrible seats, and so, like, I, you know, scrambled down next to the stage, and Eric got down next to the stage in between sets, and he said, hey, hi, how are you doing? Like, he didn't use my name. I was wearing the same shirt, so that probably it's fairly distinctive. So, so he was just, again, he remembered me, or at least he pretended he did. So, you know, pretty gracious of him to do that. So, you know, everything they say about Eric Carr is true. And unfortunately, I was reading news I was working at a radio station in Saskatoon when he died, and I had to read that story on the air that Eric Carr had passed, and it just, like, that was one of the hardest scripts I had to read. So that was pretty sad, but yeah, he was a sweetheart.
Well, what an incredible memory you have of Eric. You're never going to forget that experience.
No, he was about 2/3 hair. That's what I remember thinking.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm standing next to him, but the worst part about it is that I don't have any pictures of that, because you didn't have the selfie and so I had one of those little 110 Instamatic cameras, right? They had a little teeny tiny film in it, and I took 48 pictures. So I took 2 pictures at the airport. The rest were at the concert, because I didn't know if anything was going to happen afterwards at the hotel. And so we took them to Safeway to get them printed. And my mom came back home and she was like, Meaghan, I'm really sorry.
Oh.
And she said, they gave me back these two things and they're empty. So I'd taken 48 pictures and one turned out.
At least you have that one.
At least you got that one. So that's, I mean, so the gods were smiling on me that day when that was the only one. The one of Gene didn't turn out. I took one of him coming down the escalator and coming towards us, and that was all just black. So it was weird. It's just none of those pictures turned out except for that one.
Mm-hmm. Wow. But unfortunately, I missed KISS in the 80s. I saw them in 79, then I saw them again in 89. Okay. So how was that show that you saw?
Animalize? Well, it was awesome. Like it was, and I had a good friend who was got some great pictures that he gave me as well. It was an amazing show. Dawkin opened, wow, nice. So that was sort of the first or second. We met them too at the hotel. Wasn't really enamored with them, but yeah, so it was a great show. The one thing about it was that I'll always remember is Paul going on and says, "I love to come to Regina," you know. And yeah, and again, it was, for me, it was the first time I'd seen them. We were just starting to see videos, so it wasn't like, I'm sure for you, I remember back the first couple of times when I actually saw them on television that they moved. Mm-hmm. Like that was freaky because you were so used to seeing them just in 2 dimensions on a page, and to actually have them moving and then actually have them in 3 dimensions in front of you. It, I could feel the heat off of all the fire bombs, and it was just, I just remember it was pure joy that I felt to finally get to see them.
And those shows in '85 were very high energy, just like in the video.
Yep. And again, Bruce sort of stood back. He wasn't that active. It's Bruce.
Right.
and what I remember is not so much that one, but like the one in '88, the Crazy Nights tour, just being crazy fast. Like everything seemed to be really sped up. That was with Anthrax opening. Right. And that was it was I loved it because I loved the fact that they were playing new songs off the album. I loved the fact that they it was a great show. It really was. And very high energy. And it's funny, like not the Regina show. I've never been able to find bootleg audio of the Regina show in '85. I have the bootleg audio of the one in '88. And I didn't realize like how filthy Paul was on stage. That was just like, whoa, listening back to it now, I was like, oh my. I don't prude, but it was like, whoa.
They were trying to be rougher in the '80s.
See, and I would have loved, you said when you saw them in '89 that you saw the hits tour. I would have killed to have seen that one. That one I would have loved to have seen. And I was waiting for them. I was hoping they'd come to Winnipeg. I was in, second year university. And I was just like, come on. And they never came anywhere near us. And the big regret with that, of course, is because that was Eric Carr's last tour.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How was that show?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Just to see Eric Carr was special in and of itself. But I hadn't seen KISS in 10 years at that point, and I was rediscovering the band. And long story short, KISS really made me who I am today. And I realized at that show that they were my salvation, not my damnation. So when their logo went up, I felt like I was 10 years old again, and it completely changed my life. Just amazing. And you were saying, seeing KISS like move for the first time at the Dynasty show. I mean, they came out from the floor and it's like they weren't moving. They just came out of the floor. It was like I was jumping up and down. And those were the days where we were able to go down further to get closer to the stage. We couldn't do that now. But I was up in the blues and the nosebleeds. I went right down to the Reds before the show started. And they were right there. My idols were right there. What an experience.
Yeah, that was, like I say, with the with the 85 show, I'm short. I'm only 5'3", and so like I had seats up on the side, and because I was just, I was, but like as close to the stage, I was sitting outside. It was January 26th. The tickets went on sale for that one, and I was sitting in my car outside the Agrodome. I was the only person there, so I got like front row on the side, and I was thrilled about that, to be able to get that close, because I knew I'd probably be like never see anything down on the floor. And interesting trivia note is that Todd Kearns, who is the bass player with Slash, but also he plays with Bruce on in Bruce's band, and has an amazing voice. He's from Lanigan, Saskatchewan, and he was at that same show. We both had our very first KISS shows at the same time in the same venue in Regina, little old Regina, Saskatchewan. So there you go.
Oh, wow. Small world, huh?
Yeah. And then I have stories with Brent Fitz, who was the drummer with Bruce's band, also plays with Slash, has played with Gene, has played with everybody. And he was at the show in '88, the Crazy Nights one in Winnipeg, because he's from Winnipeg. And he actually told me that he worked for a music store in town, and they sent him to replace or bring in new drum heads for Eric Carr. So he got to go in as like this 18-year-old kid and sit at Eric Carr's drum kit, and got to meet Eric Carr. I mean, what a thrill, eh? So, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. I was listening to Julian Gill's FAQ podcast, and he was interviewing Andrew, who was talking about his experiences with Gene and Eric, and how nice Eric Singer is. Eric had him go on the drum riser and just go up. Imagine that. Imagine having that experience.
That'd be so cool.
Once in a lifetime.
No doubt.
All KISS fans have dressed up as the band. I've dressed up as Paul, Gene, and Ace, not Peter, not yet anyway. But I really felt comfortable in the Gene outfit, in the Gene costume, in his persona. Like him, I share his love for comic books and horror movies. I know that you dress up as well, and as Paul, and you also dress up in the Animalized Asylum era.
Yep.
So, so now I realize it's because that was your first show.
That one, yeah, and again, I think most KISS fans, at least of a certain era, had that Animalized Live and Uncensored. I probably wore out the VHS copy of it. I know every beat of sweat. I loved that costume that Paul had with the ribbons on the pants. I thought it was amazing, and so that was one of the first costumes I made for the KISS cruise. One of not the one, but one of them, and because I just loved that era, and I loved that suit. So that was the first one I made. But actually, the first person I dressed up as was Peter. When I was a little kid, I was a Peter girl.
Really?
Oh yeah, first thing. When I first got into the band, I loved Peter.
Okay.
And it just so happened that the timing wise, Peter left the band, and I hit puberty, and I saw Paul Stanley, and I went, oh. So I became a Paul girl at that point.
Okay. I met you online. I believe it was before KISS Cruise 1. And, being on a KISS cruise, it's like, it's total craziness.
Yeah.
And this is actually the first time we're actually sitting down and having a conversation. Because we met quickly on the cruise, but it was like, hi, how's it going? This is cool. This is great. Next, it was nuts. But I remember my first introduction to you was, I believe it was at the karaoke when you were doing those Paul moves with the outfit. You have it down pat. Oh. I mean, you're so known for that move that you do. A lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, where else are you going to wear a pair of ribbon pants but on the KISS cruise? They sort of frown at it at my office, right?
And get away with it.
Yeah, no kidding. So, yeah, actually, I was not on the first KISS cruise. I was on KISS cruise. My first KISS cruise was KISS Cruise 2. One of the biggest regrets of my life. And it wasn't until I saw the stuff on, like, I saw the ad for it. We had just bought the house that we're in right now. My kids were little, so it was like, it's not in the cards. And I thought, they'll probably have a couple of tribute bands and, a couple of things and, whatever, too expensive, too much money. And then I saw the stuff on that people were putting onto YouTube when they had that first show. And I was like, you mean they're actually on the boat and they're playing all the stuff? Because I remember the last show that Dave, my husband, and I went on, and I was like, okay, I've heard the same song, 6 or 7 times. I think, it's starting to get a little, and then I saw the stuff on the cruise and I was like, yes, that's what I want to be. And so I said, we're going. And I haven't missed one since. So unfortunately, I wasn't on the first one. I know everybody says that was amazing, and it looks like it was amazing, but sadly, no, I'm a mere 8-timer.
Okay. I'm a mere 3-timer. But so I guess I met you on Kiss Cruise 4 then. Is when because when we were doing stuff online and yakking online and that kind of stuff, because after Kiss Cruise 1, I joined the Kiss Cruisers page. Like there were a couple of groups and I joined them, and I think I might have even started doing the sing-along. We were talking about your concert experiences in Winnipeg and Regina. So what is the Kiss scene like in Winnipeg?
So the Kiss scene in Winnipeg?
Yeah.
So I moved here in about 93 and 92, and they come through, if they're going to come through Canada, they usually they'll hit Winnipeg, with the exception of the End of the Road tour. Okay. They haven't come here yet. And so in last year, there was a concert. The closest one to us was going to be in Grand Forks, North Dakota, in February. And so and you want to talk about lucky. So we didn't buy tickets when they first went on sale, because here in February you could have a blizzard, and if the highway shuts down, there's no, why spend all that money, and we would never get our money back and that kind of stuff. So we literally waited until the very last minute to get tickets to the show in Grand Forks, the week before, because we knew that it wasn't going to be too bad weather-wise. And so the whole family, the kids, my daughter got to see her very first big Kiss show. She'd been on the cruise last year. And but usually they play in Winnipeg. I've got a funny story if you want to hear it, but
of course.
As far as the Kiss scene, there's a small dedicated group of Kiss fans that are here, but it took the Kiss Cruise for me to actually meet who ended up being one of our best friends here. But we didn't meet them until we were on the Kiss Cruise, and they live here in Winnipeg. So, and do you want me to tell a little story? Okay. So, we're on Kiss Cruise 2, and I'm sitting and having a conversation with Scott Morton, who was in Sir Kiss. He was the ace in Sir Kiss. And we were yakking away, and I said, we've got this great Kiss tribute band in Winnipeg. They're called the Paul Stanleys. And they're all 4 members. All of them in the band are Paul. And he said, yeah, one of the guys is on the boat. I said, you're kidding. Because I had never actually met them. I'd gone to their shows, but I was too shy to kind of go up and make friends or anything like that. And so he said, yeah, he's on the boat, the drummer. He's on with his wife. I talked to him a while ago. I said, he's always wearing his Paul Stanley's shirt. So we were coming up the stairs, I think, and there was Mark and Jody. And I said, hey, Paul Stanley's, I'm from Winnipeg. I love your band. But I have this idea for you. I said, I think you should be Paul from different eras, and I want to make your costumes.
Wow.
And I probably had been drinking. Probably a lot. So he said, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. Here's my email address. Let's, get in touch when, we're back in Winnipeg.
And you've been making a lot of costumes for fans.
Yep.
Can you tell us about some of the costumes that you've made? I know you made some for Andy as well.
Yeah, so Andy, I always love doing stuff for Andy because he wants obscure. So the first thing I think I made for Andy was what he called the silver dress, Ace's silver dress from on Hotter Than Hell. And so I made that for him. And then he wanted the purple jumpsuit that Ace I was wearing. There's like 3 pictures of it. That's it.
Yeah.
And and I love that stuff. I love going and finding the really kind of obscure stuff. The real challenge I had with that was finding the right color purple. So I was in the fabric store with Andy on Facebook Messenger, taking pictures of fabric, messaging, is this it? Is it, do you think this is it? I think that's a little too blue. No, I think this one's a little too pink. And trying to match up the colors. I've done that. The biggest one that I've done is for Mr. Speed. I did the Ace Dynasty costume. And that one was, boy, oh boy, that's a lot of work. And there's no McCall's or Butterick pattern for these things. You got to kind of figure it out on your own. And I was hand cutting all those mirrors. I had to score them 30 times, in one direction, 30 times in another direction, snap them. Oh, that didn't work. And then I'd have to sand them down. And yeah, it was a lot of work doing that one, but it was cool that was one of those, Mount Everest things that you have to climb to do that one.
But your attention to detail with these costumes, it's second to none. It's just incredible.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I jokingly call myself an anal retentive Virgo, and because it used to drive me crazy as a kid. If my mom would make me Kiss costumes or any costumes, it wouldn't be an exact copy, and I wanted no, this has to be that. So yeah, I get pretty, detail oriented because I want to make sure, because I know Kiss fans are detail oriented as well. And I want to make sure that I get it just right.
And how did you get into making costumes like that to begin with?
So my mom and my stepfather taught at the theater department at the University of Regina. And my mom taught costume design. So I grew up under a sewing machine and in a wardrobe making costumes. And so I don't technically have any formal training per se, but, I did, I learned a lot, and I, would work with my mom and that kind of stuff. And then, again, just trial and error. And so, and thank God for Google these days, because you can Google stuff. And if you don't quite understand how this works or that works, or how can I get this to do this, then you can usually Google and find out. But yeah, like I say, the very first thing I did make for the Kiss cruise was Paul's feathered coat, the one that he's got. And boy, like if I could, I'd love to redo that for myself, because there was a lot of things that I did badly on it. But but the first thing with the costume thing, the first one I did really for somebody else was, so Mark comes back to me and says, "Yeah, we really like your idea for the Paul Stanleys. Our bass player is a really big guy, and we can't find any costumes for him. Can you make one for him?" And so I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And so he wanted to do the Paul Creatures outfit, but we made it with a blazer jacket so that it was long, so that it was more flattering, and we put it together. And boy, that was another one. Like, you didn't know what exactly you were doing, but you sort of figure it out and you get it done. And then the other guys in the band were going, "Oh, that's really cool. Can you make me this?" So then I made Mark. He was Paul from Love Gun. And then the lead singer and the rhythm guitarist, he was Paul alive. So I did up his bodysuit. And their Paul Ace. He bought one of the costumes like that they had, the Paul. What was it, Sonic Boom, or because it was the takeoff. It was the later version of Destroyer, that everybody had. So he wore that, but I had to adjust it for him. And there were always plans for me to make him another suit, but then they broke up.
Okay.
And so then there's a new Kiss tribute band in Winnipeg, well, new from a couple of years ago, called Last Kiss, and they're and So they're here now, and I hope they can perform someday. That'd be nice.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, no kidding.
So which costume would you like to do that you haven't done yet?
Oh, the one that I haven't done yet, because there really aren't many that I haven't done. I would have to. I haven't done, and I haven't been. It'd be cool to try. Is the only one that I haven't done is the Paul Elder.
Right.
You know, because it is kind of wacky. But I have. I think. Yeah, I've done all of them. I don't. The Jean ones are another skill set. So I've done like Jean Love Gun. I've done the earlier Jean ones, but I don't do armor. That's another skill set. There's lots of people out there that do amazing work in that, and so I don't. So you know, the only ones that I really haven't done are a lot of Jean ones. I even did the Peter Dynasty one as well, and my sewing room looked like I killed a Muppet, like in because there was green fun fur everywhere. It was just, I did the Paul Dynasty one as well. There was like probably 10,000 rhinestones on that thing. I did that for Rob Calais in Florida. So that was another one. That was a good one. So yeah, I think, you know, every time you do one, you just want to perfect it a little bit more. So, but the only one that I haven't been asked to do is the Paul Elder.
Okay.
So.
But say what you want about those Dynasty costumes. They're so much fun just to look at. I can imagine wearing those costumes.
Oh,
it
I know.
Must be something else.
I know. It's it really is you know, and looking at it, the one person I would love to talk to someday. I'd love to sit down and have a drink with is Pixie Esmond, because yes, you know, she is amazing. Yeah. I think she strikes me as the type of person who'd have some good stories to tell. So I'd love to meet up with her.
I think I met her at an Ace show in New York, I believe. She was such a sweetheart. We happened to be sitting at the same table.
Wow.
We just started talking. At the time, I didn't know who she was until after we met. It was what an amazing woman to talk to. And you're right, a lot of stories. And she's so full of energy when she talks, you know. What a thrill to talk to her.
Yeah, no, I'd love her.
So I want to go back to the KISS cruises. You were saying how you regret not being on KISS Cruise 1. You've been on 8 of them. Can you tell us about some of your most memorable experiences on the KISS cruise? What stands out for you?
So the one where I have to say that one of the first memories, and it wasn't even on the boat, and it was part of what did it. So KISS Cruise 2, there was a pre-party at the Hard Rock Cafe, and that was so Hurricane Sandy had just blown through, and there were a lot of people that couldn't actually get physically down to Florida. And we literally, when we flew from Winnipeg to Toronto, we flew through the clouds of Hurricane Sandy as it had gone north, and all the flights were canceled. So I was really concerned that we weren't going to get to Florida. So we got to Florida, and we went to the Hard Rock Cafe, and there was Sir Kiss playing, and they had all this banter in between, and it was little real serious inside jokes. You know, they had this young guy come up to play guitar and said, "Oh, bye Ace, it's 1983 all over again," you know, and like everybody just lost it, and they were killing themselves laughing. And I'm thinking, they get it. They know this stuff.
Yeah.
I have found my family. And it was like, I don't think I slept for 27 hours. And I was just, I felt like I had found my family. And that was the biggest thing about the cruise. And just being on that boat and being able to talk about Mark St. John, and people knew what you were talking about. You could say November 24th, 1991 was the saddest day ever, and people would know why. Mm-hmm. You know, all those, you could say those kinds of things, and you didn't have to spend 10 minutes explaining it. Yeah. So, you know, that, and being up all night, being in the casino until 3 o'clock in the morning, singing songs at the top of your lungs with people from, Brazil and Australia and Scotland and the States and all that kind of stuff, like me, and just that sense of family that I discovered on that boat. It really was life-changing. So, it's hard to boil down. I mean, my friend Francie Holt, she took me on a meet and greet with her, and she, with Paul Stanley, she bought a guitar. And so it's like, what am I going to sign? When am I going to get signed? And I said, oh, I should get that Paul and picture Paul and I and get him to sign it. So we went, I have a giant one from like the original down in my basement. It's in my sewing room, and it's like a 10 by 14, and it's been dry mounted, so I couldn't roll it up and bring it with me. So I got this 8 by 10. So I brought that in and I put it down in front of him, and I said, this is March 7th, 1985 in Regina, Saskatchewan. He says, I remember this.
Wow.
My journalist mind's going, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. And so he's like, yeah, no, I remember this. And I mean, he didn't go into any whatever, but it was like pretty thrilling that he said that, because I went to my husband afterwards and was going, yeah, right, whatever, And he said, he didn't have to say that.
True.
And it's like, yeah, no, it's true. And then I finally, so as I think I mentioned, Jean had signed my arms way back in 1985. Paul had signed my other one. And in 1985 at 16, you didn't get things tattooed on you, right, at that time. And so I'd always said, I am going to someday get Paul to sign some part of my body, and I'm going to get it tattooed. And so we were standing in line, and this woman who was with us, she put her ankle up on the table and got Paul to sign it. And so then Francie said, oh, can you sign mine? And I'm like, no time like the present. So, popped. So it was a 33-year split second decision. So that was pretty cool. Going and watching, Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz and Bruce Kulick and Bob, that was amazing on the boat. Just playing all those songs from the 80s. Like I was into Kiss in the 70s. I loved 70s Kiss. I loved early 80s Kiss. I loved 80s Kiss, 90s Kiss. I love all of the eras, but it really was nice to hear some of those songs being played. And then my next, big one was taking my kids on the last cruise and bringing them in to meet Paul Stanley as well.
Oh, wow. that
that was profoundly cool that I was able to get them to meet Paul Stanley. So that was a lot of fun. But the cruises are so much about the family, the KISS family that you make. And we and it's really funny because I'll have people running up to me, you're the sing-along girl, or you're the sing-along girl. Yeah.
No, I said it 1,000 times. Like being a KISS fan, it's almost like a celebrity that comes with it. People recognize what you do, and people follow you online. Yeah, you are the sing-along girl. You are the Paul animalized girl. And you are the KISS costume. Yeah. You are the costume girl. I mean, so many facets of you. And fans know who you are. It's amazing. What's equally amazing, for me, doing the fan profiles is my favorite part of doing the Kiss Army Nation podcast, because you really get to see how much KISS fans have in common. And you're talking about the experience with Paul saying, yeah, I remember that. You made me feel better, because years ago, I went to one of Paul's gallery painting things. I bought one of his paintings. And previous to that, I went to his book tour, and I had him sign my arm under my KISS logo.
Yep.
And I brought him the picture of that. He goes, I remember that. And I thought, yeah, sure he does. But you're right. He didn't have to say that. Yeah.
And that's, my husband's also a journalist. So, he's pretty cynical too. And so he's like, yeah, no, he didn't have to do that. So he doesn't. And I've heard some people say, no, and I know there's a lot of people who don't like Paul, I think, because they think he comes off as a bit, I don't even know what the word to, but like, you know, that they there's a lot of people that don't like Paul out there, and that's fine. I get it. I understand it. But I think he doesn't have to blow smoke. Like,
yeah.
And so I think, you know, okay, yeah, I'll take it. And then the last time I got up to ask a question during the meet and greet thing, and I said, "Hi, I'm Meaghan from Winnipeg." So I said, "Oh yeah, I remember you. I know." It's like, and that was in front of my kids, so that was like
nice.
It's like if that 16-year-old kid in that picture who was not having a good time in high school, was bullied, all that kind of stuff. If I could have told that girl in 1985 that however many years later, Paul Stanley's going to say, "I remember you, I know you."
Wow.
Yeah.
Huge.
Big. Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, right? We're so lucky to be KISS fans because it gave us so many amazing experiences. And, you know, it's sad that, you know, it's coming to an end soon.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to keep the KISS spirit alive for you?
Well, living where I do and having grown up as I did in like the middle of nowhere where they really didn't come that often, I'm going to just keep on keeping on, right? I'm going to keep listening. I'm going to keep loving and enjoying and, you know, reveling in my memories of the band. I don't, because I don't think they necessarily have to play live for me, because again, I like, for the number of years, like since 1975 that I've been a fan, I've seen a relatively few number of concerts because just of where I grew up. It wasn't really an option. So unlike some people where like they would see them regularly, like almost annually. So I think, you know, there's lots of stuff to enjoy the memories. I'm hoping that, you know, you'll see lots of, I think the tribute bands will continue on because people, I think, still want rock and roll.
Yeah.
And they'll go and see them. So when KISS comes to an end, I'll be, you know, very sad. Paul, I think, will still be productive. Gene will still be productive. You know, Eric and Tommy. Yeah, and you know, who knows what Bruce's band. I think Bruce got a real kick in the pants seeing the reaction from everybody on the KISS cruise with his band, and you know, with Todd and Zach and Brent, and you know, so I know that they're thinking, hey, maybe they could tour. So I think there's always going to be some kind of KISS out there. I don't necessarily have to see them live to keep loving them and to keep having them as part of my life. What I will miss are the KISS cruises. When the KISS cruises come to an end, I think I will miss that. That's what I'll miss more than, let's say, the end of the road, the end of the tours, so to speak.
Andy's looking at doing a series of KISS cruise reunions. How do you feel about that?
I will be there with bells on. Absolutely.
I'm sure a lot of people will.
Oh my goodness. Because like, you know, the first couple of years, it was like the anticipation of seeing the band, and I've been fortunate enough that I've been down in the pit for a couple of those shows, like on the cruise, really nice and close, touching the boot, which was kind of fun. But it's the family. It's you know, the people that I was the most excited to see are like Laura and Scott Morton, you know, and seeing Jared Frank and seeing Francie and seeing you and seeing Andy and you know, like all these people that I've gotten to be good friends with. And then the other thing that I would hope is that another friend of mine who you should talk to, you might have met him, I'm not sure, is Keith Doyle.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of
so
course.
Keith, actually, there's Keith Doyle and I worked at a radio station in Regina, Saskatchewan back in the early 90s. And we discovered we were Kiss fans when he saw my picture that I had of Paul Stanley and I, and we just became fast friends, and we've been friends ever since. And every one of those Kiss cruises, I'm like, Keith should be on here. And I was so glad when he finally got on the boat. But those things are expensive, but he might be able to swing a trip to Vegas because, you know, like that's a little less expensive than the cruises. And I want to see all those people that, you know, maybe they couldn't get on the boat, but can get to Vegas because you can get cheap flights and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, people have other financial priorities in their lives. And I would love to see all those people. But what I suggested to Andy too, now Vegas, I think is a great idea. But what I want to see is I want to do a pilgrimage to New York. And I know that a lot of people did that a couple of years ago, that there was there was the one where Peter came. It was an expo, and then everybody went around. But don't you think a Kiss pilgrimage to New York, going to all those sites, and then going all the way up, because I know it's a ways out of town. I've never seen Eric Carr's grave. You know, being able to do something like that, I think that would be amazing.
Well, Andy's posting that right now on his Facebook page, all the New York sites. He's doing that right now. He'd be the perfect person to do that. Absolutely.
Totally. Yep. I would love that, because it gives us an excuse to get together. Yeah. Right. And hopefully it would get an excuse to people from other parts of the world to go as well. So. Yeah.
You mentioned Keith. That guy he's insane. I remember the Toronto Gene Simmons Vault experience. I got there 3 hours early, and I was the second person in line. Keith was the first.
Yep.
So he sees me, he goes, "You're Pasquale Veri, aren't you?" "Yes." "I beat you. I'm here in line before you are. I always see you're online and you're always first in line. Now it's me." It's like, oh my God, you know? And we became best of friends. We hung out. We sat. It was just incredible.
Keith is the best. I love Keith. I love his wife, his kids. They're amazing. And, you know, like he's mad at me because one time I had a very quick trip to Edmonton and I went to IKEA and didn't go and see him. So I'll never live that one. But we didn't have an IKEA at that time. That's my excuse. But no, I mean, but that's the thing. Like, you make these friends. Like, I think about like Keith, and then like I say, Mark and Jody here in Winnipeg. I mean, and the funny thing is like Mark's from here and Jody is from Regina. So, you know, we just get on, they're family. They've become family. And that's what I truly love about the Kiss cruises and Kiss, is that you find this kinship with people, because we've all, you know, gone through that stuff. Like, even so, with my husband, I dragged him back into the Kiss fold. That, I mean, he used to, when he and I were in journalism school together, and he wouldn't sit there insulting Kiss. We'd be in the darkroom rolling film, and he'd make some snide comment. I'm like, "Argh." And then we got together, and the rest is history. And and then I discovered, like, he's got this steel trap brain for all of this trivia, and he was like this crazy Kiss fan in like rural Saskatchewan. And so, you know, so now we share our Kissdom, shall we say.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've seen Kiss countless times, tribute bands, expos, the works, the whole 9 yards. But, you know, right now for me, that's secondary to the connection that we build with other fans and the friendships and the bonds that we create with them. For me, it's second to none.
Yeah, it's true.
So before we wrap up, I want to bring up one more little thing. In a previous episode with Raula Brown, we talked about a woman's perspective of the band. You know, and I remember saying that personally, I think it's a person's perspective, just like anyone else's, right? It's based on one's experiences, likes, dislikes, you know, whatever. It's regardless of sex, gender, race. Do you agree with that? Is there a unique woman's perspective of Kiss?
So, yeah, in a way, yes. And it is, and Raula, who I adore too, I love seeing Raula, she touched on it as well. And it is the perception of others of you as a female Kiss fan.
Right.
and it's the assumption that you're just a fly-by-night fan. Sorry, sweetheart. I've been in this since 1975. I didn't leave them when they put out The Elder. I was the first one buying it, and that kind of stuff. So there's that I think that there is a perception, and you go on the boat and you count the number of women that are there, and, there aren't as many as men. And they are just as rabid, just as dedicated as the guys. But I think a lot of guys don't necessarily take us as seriously as KISS fans. And I think that happens with hard rock too. I remember a quote from Gene once upon a time, way back when, like sort of after the hair metal KISS was sort of evolving into revenge KISS. And he was saying, well, you don't want to be a band with a lot of female fans because they're fly by night. They won't stick around. And I actually got really insulted by that, because no, there's a lot of us who did stick by the band and have been by the band for the whole time. So I think a lot of it is perception of us as female fans, and I think there's also another sort of, I think, interesting difference. And of course, there's going to be someone out there who'll prove me wrong. But what I find the difference between female fans and male fans, and this goes back to what I was saying about my husband, and maybe it's the hockey cards, the baseball cards, is guys love the trivia aspect, and being very competitive with, I know a finite bit of trivia that you don't. Whereas I think female fans, it's like they just kind of immerse themselves in the whole thing, and they don't need to know like the second producer and engineer on the, on Hotter Than Hell that, fell asleep at the switch and that's why it sounds so bad, that kind of stuff. So I think that's a little bit of a difference. So yeah, I think there is a difference between, and not that one is better or one is worse, but we do have, there is an issue with female fans being taken seriously,
right?
And because I know, like, there was like one of the first times on the boat, someone came up to me and sort of rattled off all this trivia at me, and it's like, okay, prove it. Are you a fan? And I said, I named my son Paul.
Yeah.
And my daughter Julia. And if you know why, that's great. Then we can be friends. So. So that's what I find the difference is that, and I find that female fans to each other aren't as competitive in that way as maybe some of the guys are, that they want to prove their fandom by, I've got more stuff, I know, more, little niggly trivia bits. Whereas, I think female fans don't feel that's not something that they need they don't need to feel they have to prove their fandom,
right.
and they're not taken as seriously.
I think an issue also, especially with KISS crews, is that people have this perception that the women are following their boyfriends or husbands on the cruise. They're not there for the band. They're there for the actual cruise. Yeah,
there's just there. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I have so many people that are like, "Oh, you're here with Dave," and it's like, he's here with me,
right?
Although no, let's not get me wrong. I mean, my husband is a huge KISS fan as well. For anybody who's been on the boat, he is the Elder Door. He came up with this shirt with the knocker, and so he is has gone on board as the Elder Door, and he's a huge KISS fan as well. But I'm actually the one that dragged him kicking and screaming back into the into the KISS world in the late '80s. Although it was funny because so when I was in first year university, this was in the late '80s, and I was walking in, and there was a radio station at the University of Regina. And they had a radio station, and they, of course, because of the time, they were too cool for any hair metal. They hated all that stuff. They hated KISS, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm walking in to go to a night class, and I hear 2000 Man. And I'm like, I look up at the speaker in the ceiling, and I'm like, I'm going to marry that guy, whoever is playing that. And I found out years later it was Dave.
Wow.
Yeah. because he was the only one. He was working at the radio station at the U of R at CKUW, and he was playing. He was the only jock that played Kiss, and I said,
I'm going to marry you.
And I did.
Oh, that's incredible. Kiss brought you together. That's amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
The power of Kissdom. I love it.
It's true.
So, Meaghan, this was my first time on this podcast going solo, and I am so glad to have gone solo on this episode. It was such an incredible experience talking to you, listening to your stories, your passion and enthusiasm for the band. I think our listeners are really, really going to enjoy this episode.
I hope they do.
I know they will. And, from the bottom of my heart, I really want to thank you for coming on the show and taking your time to do this. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. And I hope we can actually meet in the flesh again someday soon.
How far is Winnipeg from Montreal? Do you have any idea? Because I might just come visit because you know what? I know Quebec and Ontario. I don't know the rest of Canada. So post-pandemic, I want to travel more around Canada.
Well, like Winnipeg is probably a good 3-day drive.
No, I fly. I definitely fly.
Yeah, no, so we're, you definitely want to fly. It's, and I love Montreal. I absolutely love Montreal. It's one of my favorite cities. So someday, I want to get back to traveling, to other places beyond, a lot of our traveling has been primarily to the cruise because, it does cost a lot of money. It's sort of our vacation. The kids are still young enough. Like my kids are 17 and 12. Mm-hmm. And so, we're getting to the end of that world where we're every year we got to see grandma and grandpa and go to Saskatchewan. So I want to head east at some point and get back to Montreal, especially because my kids are bilingual. So that would be really cool to have them come to Montreal.
Well, listen, if you ever come to Montreal, my girlfriend and I, we each own our separate condos.
Ooh.
So my place is your place. You come to Montreal, this place is yours for the family. I'll stay with Brenda.
Oh, you're a doll.
And I mean that. I mean that.
Oh, that would be so cool. I wish I could make the same offer. My spare room is my sewing room, and it looks like it's a disaster right now. Like it's like I saw a picture from years back. And I'm like, it's so clean, and because it's a explosion of thread and everything like that. I'm working on some stuff for some friends right now, and so it's a bit of a disaster.
Well, the offer is open here in Montreal, and I hope to play tour guide for you one day.
I'd love that. Great. That's awesome. So
thanks again, Meaghan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, I want to borrow an idea from Matt Porter and Ken Mills. They always give shout outs to fans, and we haven't done that since episode 2. So I want to give a few shout outs to people who have continuously supported us here on the Kiss Army Nation podcast. Of course, Matt Porter of the Kiss Room, Ken Mills of Podcast, Julian Gill of the Kiss FAQ podcast, Cameron Duty of Alive Unplugged, the music of Kiss, Alexander Talkington, who does our graphics and is part of a new podcast called Kiss Army Things, and some of our friends, Andy Lay, of course, Raula Brown, and who could forget Andy Moyen. And to Claudio, thanks again for accepting my request to be on the show. And we're going to be seeing you for the next installment. And I'm so looking forward to working with you. And finally, to the Kiss Army, thank you for listening. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. I know you will. And remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone. Bye, Meaghan.